A jagged opening in the volcanic landscape of central Oregon stretches for nearly 2 miles across the high desert, cutting through basalt and cinders, with an appearance so striking that many first-time visitors assume it was formed by a recent geological catastrophe. Yet the feature known as crack in the ground is neither new nor actively widening today. Instead, it is an ancient fissure, a remarkable geological structure that offers a direct glimpse into the forces that shaped one of the most volcanically active regions in North America. Its existence raises compelling questions. Why does a crack of such size exist in an otherwise open landscape? What processes were powerful enough to split solid rock over such a distance? And what does this feature reveal about the long history of volcanic activity, crustal movement, and landscape evolution in Oregon? Located in the remote high desert east of Bend, Crack in the Ground occupies a landscape that at first glance appears deceptively simple. The surrounding terrain consists largely of broad sagebrush flats, scattered juniper, and volcanic deposits that reflect millions of years of geological activity. The fissure itself interrupts this relatively uniform setting with dramatic effect. Extending approximately 2 miles, or about 3.2 kilometers in length, the crack reaches widths ranging from only a few feet to more than 70 feet, equivalent to more than 21 meters in some sections. Depths vary considerably along its course, with portions descending more than 70 feet below the surrounding surface. Unlike canyons carved by rivers or valleys created by glaciers, Crack in the Ground originated through the fracturing of the Earth's crust. The fissure is classified as a tension crack, a feature produced when the ground is stretched apart. Rather than being excavated by erosion, it formed because the rock itself split open. Understanding why requires examining the broader geological setting of Central Oregon. The region lies within an area shaped by extensive volcanic activity. For millions of years, lava flows, volcanic eruptions, and tectonic forces have repeatedly altered the landscape. Much of the terrain surrounding Crack in the Ground consists of basalt, a dark volcanic rock created when fluid lava spreads across the surface and cools. Basaltic lava flows can cover enormous distances, producing broad plains that eventually solidify into thick layers of rock. The story of Crack in the Ground begins with these volcanic processes. Geological studies indicate that the fissure developed within relatively young volcanic deposits associated with the broader volcanic history of Central Oregon. The area experienced repeated eruptions during the late stages of regional volcanic activity, leaving behind extensive lava fields and cinder cones. As lava cooled and solidified, the landscape became susceptible to later deformation caused by tectonic movement. Tectonics refers to the motion and deformation of the Earth's outer shell. Although Oregon is often associated with volcanic hazards because of the Cascade Range, tectonic forces play an equally important role in shaping the state's geology. Central Oregon lies near the western margin of the Basin and Range Province, a vast region characterized by crustal stretching. This stretching has gradually pulled the Earth's crust apart over millions of years, creating faults, valleys, and fractures across large portions of the western United States. Crack in the Ground formed as part of this broader pattern of crustal extension. When rocks are subjected to tension, they may eventually fracture once the stress exceeds their strength. In the case of the Oregon fissure, movement along underlying faults caused the surface rock to split. Rather than producing a single clean break, the process generated a long, irregular opening that followed zones of weakness within the volcanic deposits. The resulting fissure displays many characteristics typical of tension fractures. Its walls often appear steep and relatively straight, reflecting the brittle nature of the volcanic rock. In some places, the crack narrows into passages only a few feet wide. In others, the opening broadens dramatically, creating chambers and widened sections where additional fracturing occurred. The uneven geometry provides clues about variations in rock composition, local stress conditions, and the complex mechanics of crustal deformation. One of the most notable aspects of Crack in the Ground is that it remains visible on the modern landscape despite its considerable age. Geological features are constantly modified by weathering and erosion. Rain, wind, temperature changes, and biological activity gradually alter exposed rock surfaces. Over thousands or millions of years, many fractures become filled with sediment or obscured by vegetation. The persistence of this fissure reflects the arid climate of Central Oregon, where relatively low precipitation slows the processes that might otherwise erase such features. The high desert environment surrounding the crack contributes significantly to its preservation. Annual precipitation is limited compared with Western Oregon, where abundant rainfall promotes rapid erosion and dense vegetation growth. In the drier conditions east of the Cascade Range, exposed rock remains visible for longer periods. Sparse plant cover allows geological structures to stand out clearly, making the fissure one of the most accessible examples of a large tension crack in the United States. The fissure's interior creates a distinct microenvironment that differs substantially from the surrounding desert. Because the walls block direct sunlight for much of the day, temperatures within the crack tend to remain cooler than those on the surface. Snow and ice can persist longer inside the fissure than on adjacent terrain. Moisture retention is often greater as well, allowing certain plants to survive in conditions that would be challenging elsewhere in the region. These environmental differences have produced pockets of vegetation within the crack that contrast with the landscape above. Mosses, ferns, and other moisture-dependent species can sometimes be found growing along shaded sections of the walls. Juniper trees and shrubs may also take root where soil accumulates within protected recesses. The result is a narrow ecological corridor embedded within an otherwise dry volcanic plain. The fissure also provides insight into the structural behavior of volcanic rocks. Basalt is generally strong under compression, but can fracture readily when subjected to tension. As tectonic stresses accumulated over time, the volcanic layers responded by cracking along zones where resistance was lowest. The resulting fracture propagated through the rock mass, creating the elongated opening visible today. Evidence preserved within the fissure indicates that its development was not necessarily a single event. Geological fractures often evolve through multiple episodes of movement. Small displacements may occur repeatedly over long periods, gradually enlarging existing cracks. Variations in width and depth along crack in the ground suggest that different sections may have experienced different degrees of deformation. Some areas display relatively simple geometry, while others reveal more complex patterns of fracturing. The orientation of the fissure is equally significant. Geological structures frequently align with regional stress fields. The direction in which a crack forms can reveal the forces acting on the crust at the time of its development. Crack in the ground follows a general trend consistent with the tectonic extension affecting portions of Central Oregon. This alignment strengthens the interpretation that crustal stretching played a central role in its formation. Although the fissure appears dramatic, it is important to distinguish it from active fault ruptures associated with major earthquakes. Some large cracks on the Earth's surface result directly from seismic events, forming suddenly as the ground breaks during fault movement. Crack in the ground, by contrast, represents a longer-term geological feature associated with regional extension rather than evidence of a recent catastrophic rupture. Its present appearance reflects cumulative geological processes operating over extensive timescales. The broader landscape surrounding the fissure contains numerous volcanic landforms that help place it in context. Cinder cones, lava fields, and volcanic vents occur throughout Central Oregon. These features testify to a prolonged history of magma rising from below and erupting onto the surface. As successive lava flows accumulated, they created the volcanic platform upon which later tectonic deformation occurred. Basalt flows are particularly important because they preserve structural features exceptionally well. When lava cools, it contracts and develops fractures known as cooling joints. These joints create natural planes of weakness within the rock. Later tectonic stresses can exploit such weaknesses, influencing the pattern of larger fractures. The interaction between volcanic processes and tectonic deformation therefore contributed to the eventual geometry of crack in the ground. Geologists examining the fissure have observed evidence of collapse and block movement within certain sections. As fractures widen, unsupported rock along the walls may fall into the opening. These rockfalls alter the internal structure of the crack while gradually filling portions of its floor with debris. Such processes continue today, although at relatively slow rates. The landscape remains dynamic even in the absence of major tectonic events. The dimensions of the fissure often surprise visitors because photographs can struggle to convey its scale. Standing at the edge of a section more than 70 feet deep and tens of feet wide provides a clearer appreciation of the forces involved. The opening extends beyond the range of a single viewpoint, disappearing into the distance as it traverses the volcanic plain. This continuity over nearly 2 miles underscores the regional nature of the geological stresses that created it. The feature occupies an important place in Oregon's geological heritage because it allows direct observation of processes that are often hidden beneath the surface. Many tectonic structures remain buried under soil, vegetation, or younger deposits. Crack in the ground exposes a fracture system in exceptional detail, enabling visitors and researchers alike to examine the physical consequences of crustal stretching. The fissure also serves as a reminder that dramatic geological features do not always require mountains, volcanoes, or coastlines. The relatively subdued topography of the surrounding high desert can give the impression of stability and simplicity. Yet beneath that appearance lies a complex history involving volcanism, tectonics, climate, and erosion. Crack in the ground reveals that history in a form that is both visible and accessible. Its preservation has benefited from the region's sparse population and limited development. Many geological features elsewhere have been altered by construction, mining, agriculture, or urban expansion. The remote location of the fissure has helped maintain its natural character. Visitors can observe the feature much as it has appeared for generations, with relatively little human modification. The geological significance of crack in the ground extends beyond Oregon because it illustrates principles applicable across the basin and range region. Similar tension fractures, normal faults, and extensional structures occur throughout portions of the western United States. Studying such features contributes to a broader understanding of how continents deform under tectonic stress. Regional extension remains an active process on geological timescales. Although movement occurs extremely slowly, the forces responsible for stretching the crust have not disappeared. Modern measurements using satellite-based technologies reveal that parts of the western United States continue to experience subtle deformation. Features like crack in the ground therefore represent visible expressions of processes that continue to shape the landscape today. Weathering within the fissure offers additional clues about environmental change over time. Rock surfaces record the effects of temperature fluctuations, moisture, and chemical alteration. By examining weathering patterns, scientists can gain insights into the age and evolution of exposed geological structures. The fissure functions not only as evidence of tectonic activity, but also as a record of long-term environmental conditions. Wildlife frequently utilizes the crack as well. The sheltered environment provides protection from weather and predators, while the cooler temperatures can be advantageous during hot summer months. Birds, small mammals, reptiles, and insects all interact with the unique habitat created by the fissure. This ecological dimension adds another layer of significance to the geological feature. Despite its impressive appearance, crack in the ground often receives less public attention than Oregon's volcanoes, waterfalls, or coastline. Yet from a geological perspective, it represents one of the state's most distinctive landforms. Few places provide such a clear and extensive example of crustal fracturing within a volcanic landscape. Its combination of scale, accessibility, and preservation makes it an exceptional natural laboratory. The fissure's existence demonstrates that landscapes are products of multiple interacting forces rather than single events. Volcanic eruptions supplied the basaltic foundation. Tectonic extension fractured that foundation. Climate influenced preservation. Weathering modified the exposed rock. Ecology adapted to the resulting environment. Each process contributed to the feature visible today. Viewed in this broader context, crack in the ground is far more than an isolated crack in the desert. It is a geological archive spanning immense periods of time. Every wall, fracture, and collapsed block reflects the cumulative effects of Earth's internal and surface processes. The feature records episodes of volcanism, episodes of deformation, and the gradual shaping of a high desert landscape. Its nearly 2-mile length, substantial depth, and striking geometry ensure that it remains one of Oregon's most remarkable geological landmarks. Yet its greatest significance lies not merely in its dimensions, but in what those dimensions reveal. The fissure stands as evidence that the seemingly solid crust beneath our feet is neither static nor permanent. Rocks fracture, landscapes evolve, and tectonic forces continue their slow work across spans of time that dwarf human experience. Today, crack in the ground endures as a visible reminder of that reality. Stretching across the volcanic terrain of Central Oregon, it offers an unusually direct look at the mechanisms that shape continents. The fissure may appear quiet and unchanged, but its walls preserve the record of powerful geological forces that operated over thousands and millions of years. In a region defined by volcanic history and tectonic activity, few features communicate that history more clearly than this ancient crack carved not by water or ice, but by the gradual stretching of the Earth's crust itself. The age of crack in the ground is another aspect that makes the feature noteworthy. While the fissure itself appears fresh when viewed from above, its origins are rooted in geological events that occurred thousands of years ago. The surrounding lava flows are relatively young by geological standards, but they are still ancient when measured against human history. This distinction is important because landscapes often create misleading impressions. A visitor encountering the fissure for the first time might assume that a crack of such scale formed recently, perhaps within the last few centuries. In reality, the feature represents the cumulative outcome of processes operating over long periods, with erosion and weathering acting slowly enough that the fracture remains sharply defined today. The lava fields surrounding the fissure provide valuable context. Basaltic lava is capable of flowing across great distances before solidifying, creating extensive sheets of rock that can appear almost featureless from a distance. Yet these volcanic plains are rarely uniform beneath the surface. Cooling lava contracts as it hardens, producing networks of joints and fractures. Over time, tectonic stress can exploit these weaknesses, enlarging some fractures while leaving others relatively unchanged. Crack in the ground demonstrates this relationship clearly. The fissure did not emerge in isolation, but developed within a volcanic landscape already marked by structural weaknesses inherited from its volcanic past. Walking along the length of the crack reveals considerable variation from one section to another. Some portions consist of narrow slots where the walls stand close together, creating confined passages that emphasize the depth of the opening. Other sections widen dramatically, exposing large chambers where blocks of rock have shifted or collapsed. These variations are important geological clues. They indicate that the rock did not respond uniformly to stress. Differences in rock thickness, cooling patterns, and pre-existing fractures influenced the way the fissure developed. The result is a structure that changes character repeatedly along its course while maintaining its overall continuity across the landscape. The walls themselves preserve evidence of multiple geological processes. Vertical fractures intersect horizontal layers, revealing the sequence of volcanic deposits that accumulated over time. In some places, angular blocks detached from the walls lie scattered along the floor, evidence of ongoing rockfall. Freeze-thaw cycles contribute to this process. Water entering small fractures expands when it freezes, exerting pressure on the surrounding rock. Repeated cycles gradually loosen blocks that eventually break free. Although these changes occur slowly, they demonstrate that the fissure continues to evolve even in the absence of major tectonic activity. Another notable characteristic is the way the crack influences local climate conditions on a very small scale. Temperatures within the fissure can differ significantly from those on the surface above. During the heat of summer, the shaded interior remains noticeably cooler. In winter, snow that disappears from the surrounding plains may linger within the depths of the crack. This temperature moderation affects moisture retention and contributes to the development of vegetation communities that contrast sharply with those of the surrounding desert. Such microclimates are common in deep rock fissures, but the scale of crack in the ground makes the effect particularly visible. The feature also illustrates the importance of geological timing. If the same tectonic forces had acted on a different type of landscape, the resulting landform might look entirely different. A region dominated by loose sediments could have produced subtle fault scarps rather than a dramatic open fissure. A wetter climate might have filled the fracture with sediment long ago. A heavily forested environment could have concealed much of the structure beneath vegetation. The fact that crack in the ground remains so prominent is the result of a specific combination of volcanic rock, crustal extension, arid climate, and limited erosion. Remove any one of those factors, and the landscape might tell a very different story. From an aerial perspective, the fissure appears as a dark line slicing across the pale volcanic plain. This view highlights another important aspect of the feature: its remarkable persistence over distance. Geological fractures often branch, terminate abruptly, or become obscured by later deposits. Crack in the ground remains traceable for nearly 2 miles, indicating that the stresses responsible for its formation operated across a substantial area. Such continuity provides valuable evidence for understanding the broader tectonic framework of Central Oregon.